But I don't know. It just seems like to me with 3D, it's like I feel like don't nobody kill me. I feel like 3D fighting games are basically a genre that people just want around because they're just like we respect it, we want it around. Yeah, it'd be cool if it was around. But honestly, I don't feel like y'all gonna invest into it like that. I feel like a majority of the scene are just say it's kind of like it's kind of like if you're a person who don't eat a lot of candy, like let's just say you like candy, but you don't eat a lot of it. You're a person who just like, yeah, I probably only eat it like, a couple times throughout the week because I understand like, it's unhealthy and stuff like that. If somebody told you, hey, I could have like a large stash of candy in your house, you might be like, yeah, that's cool. It'd be cool to have around. I ain't gonna partake in it much because I know I ain't supposed to. But I mean, yeah, it'd be cool to have it around to have candy when I just want it, but it's not like I'm a really indulge in it. And I feel like that's kind of like what 3D fighters are. Like, yeah, it'd be cool to have them around, boot up Tekken or Virtual Fighter and stuff like that when I want to. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna still go and play this 2D or this anime fighter. I feel like it's like a genre that people like just respect, but you ain't gonna really play it as much for some reason. And that's just seems to be the history of them because when you look at a lot of them, they ain't selling like that other than Tekken. So it's like, what does history tell you? People ain't messing with 3D fighters like that. As much as you might like them, y'all ain't messing with them. You're not. You buying 2D, you buying tag fighters, you buying team fighters, you buying, even arena fighters, the fake ones. Y'all doing them more than 3D. So, that's just my opinion. Y'all respect them, but you ain't really gonna mess with them. Like, you
Those would be
not.
into 3D fighters too, though.
So, technically, if you want to say it, but I'm not. But go ahead, Mr. Gaming Live. How do you feel about it?
Um, I don't know, man. I kind of wish that 3D fighters were in a better space, that we have more of them around. A lot of the heavy hitters that we used to have not around anymore. It's unfortunate. Like, you don't even really see a lot of indie 3D fighting game. When you see indie fighting games, it's usually 2D fighting games. I don't think I've maybe like with this is one game called like what was it called? Like Hellish Courts. It was like a jousting game, but that's not like it's a 3D fighting game, but it ain't like a traditional style game. But it's still in the category of 3D fighter. Um, but yeah, it's unfortunate because I think 3D fighters were on a pretty good they were at a pretty good place at one point. Again, like it just kind of it saddens my heart that Soul Calibur is just in the position that it's in, and it just seemed like it may never get out of that shadow of Tekken. At one point, like, and still, I think Soul Calibur is still my favorite 3D fighting game of all time. With Tekken being second, it's just unfortunate. Like again with six came out, I thought it was a great game. But the pandemic and just it's like, man, it's like this game just can't catch a break. And now I'm like, man, are they going to do 7? And then I'm thinking, like, do they think it's even worth to try 7? Because it's like, well, the last games didn't do that great. Me personally, I enjoyed 4. 4 is probably my favorite one out of the last games, and definitely one I put the most time into, like competitively. And then I played 5. I did like 5. I get people's complaints about 5, but at a certain point, I was just playing 5 online and just playing competitively. I enjoy that game a lot. I get like the whole character things. Like people didn't like the copies. You like replacing the older characters with these newer characters, but at the same time, it was kind of a endearing thing because it's like, okay, this is the 5th entry in the series. Let's maybe like show some characters that have trained under like some of our mainstays, I thought was kind of cool. You had Natsu, which is basically Taki's apprentice. Chiba was Killick's apprentice. You had Patroclus, which was Sophia's daughter, him, and what was her name? I forgot her daughter name.
Pyrrha.
That's it. But yeah, 3D fighters, man. You used to have Virtua Fighter, Dead or Alive. I remember back on Dreamcast, man. When I first played Dead or Alive 2, I was like, "This is fighting games right here, man." Like, I played that demo so much. I was like, at that time, Dead or Alive 2 was the cream of the crop of 3D fighters. The visuals at the time, like I know Maximilian, they did your video games did like a top 10 Sega Dreamcast games, and man, I know they didn't put it on the top of the list, but I was like, man, Dead or Alive 2 was a goat on Dreamcast. Yeah, Virtua Fighter, and you even got like kind of obscure games like Fighting Vipers, Fighters Destiny back on 64.
Fighting
You
Vipers
had
look so cool.
and I never got to play that game. You had Fighting Vipers, Plasma Sword, or Star Gladiator, I guess whichever the thing with Japanese names or translation or whatever. You had that. You had Mace the Dark Age. You had man, what was that game? It was like Mortal Kombat on the 64, but it was like 3D. And it was very similar to Mace the Dark Age, and that name is escaping me right now. You had that game. You got Bloody Roar, and of course, all these games will probably never come back that I'm naming right now. But at a certain point, you had like a lot of 3D fighters out there, and now, really, I would like to see it get back to the point to where you at least had a Tekken in the ring, you had a Soul Calibur in the ring, a Dead or Alive in the ring, and a Virtua Fighter. Those are like really the biggest ones that are left now that people recognize. But I get it though. There's a few of these games that are really hard to play. Tekken is hard to play, but Virtua Fighter is really hard. Virtua Fighter is basically the KOL for 3D fighting games. So the fact that it's so hard to get into, that's one of the things I'm like, it'll probably sell well and do well with the people that really enjoy that game. But on a mass scale, like a casual audience, I just don't think they're gonna rock with it because it's just there's too many like things that just like, hey, I can just block a move wrong and get wrung out just by falling off the stage. Too many things that like these nuances.
Yeah.
Now Dead or Alive is also a kind of a hard game to play, even though I know people say, oh, so let me say this one thing real quick. The one thing with 3D fighters is I know Rexon mentioned like the vast move list. And I've experienced this personally. I've had people try out Street Fighter. And they're like, this sucks. Like, I can't do combos. Well, I'm like, yes, you can. No, it's like, this sucks. It's the moves. I'm like, but you hadn't learned how to do combos. Now, this same person to go and play a 3D fighter, oh, this is great. I can do combos. And what's the reason for that? Because there's a difference in like the input system. Street Fighter has been mainly made off of links, and you have a few chains. 3D fighter games are basically chain. When you press those buttons, they just come out in a consecutive order. So you can just press random buttons and technically get a combo to come out if you just happen to look upon the right buttons. I've seen it too many times. I played against people that literally just mashing buttons and they'll do a combo string that they didn't intentionally do. So that's why people, the casual audience, they like 3D fighters more, in my opinion, because it's like you can just grab a controller, press the buttons, and you get some combo to come. You might get half a 10-hit string to come out just by pressing buttons. In 2D fighters, you can't really do that. So that's I wanted to touch on that point what Rexon said about the vast move list. It's like a lot of people don't even care about the move list because most people get in the game, they just gonna pick up the controller and start pressing buttons. But yeah, when it comes to games like DOA, it's kind of a hard game to play because when you get competitive in it, you gotta learn how to use the counters, the holds. That's the element of the game that like you just can't mash buttons because a good player is gonna counter everything you throw at them. So people might be deterred to play that game because like, man, I'm just gonna go online and get countered all day. I'm not gonna play this. Now there are other aspects of Dead or Alive that people enjoy that's not related to the game itself. So it can maybe get sales in that way, but we're just talking about on its merit as a fighting game. People might be deterred to play it. Now Tekken is hard to play, but Tekken is it's a household name. It's such a titan in the fighting game arena that people they love Tekken. They're gonna play it, and it's still accessible to people that are casuals. And of course, with the mechanics they've added, like with heat and stuff like that, it just makes it more accessible to people, more appealing. And Soul Calibur, man, I wanted to come back. Please don't ever put Reversal Edge back in the game. Please don't just take that mechanic, throw it out the window, please. But yeah, man, it's unfortunate 3D fighters are in such a lull, man, and it's just like Tekken is like the main one holding it up. And I would like to see at this point, I don't even know if a new 3D fighter could help because it might not even get any attention. It's like, oh, nobody care about that. Let me play Tekken. I kind of feel like that's where we are, and I hate it. But man, I feel like back in like the 90s, mid 90s, 2000s, 3D fighters were in much of a better space with just like the variety of them that you could play, and it just wasn't Tekken. But I don't know. I want to say we'll get out of this era for 3D fighters, but at the same time, it's not looking good.